Guys, let's talk a little Lions football now. Let's do that with one of the greats, Mike O'Hara, DetroitLions.com. Mike, thanks so much for the time, my friend.
Look.
Well, thanks for having me. Hey, look, I used to warm up the same way you did. 3 shots.
Thanks, buddy. Yeah. Hey, Mike.
3 more at the turn.
Yeah. What's going on, Mike? How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good, Braylon.
Hey, Mike, I don't think there was any availability today. Do we know what the plan is for tomorrow at all yet, as far as starters go, any rookies, or is this going to be much like kind of the first 2 games where we see a lot of the backups battling it out?
Well, Dan Campbell didn't exactly come and spell it out, word for word, but everything he said indicated that they're going to do exactly what they did in the first two games. And that means, the veteran starters aren't going to play. So I don't think you'll see anything really different than what you saw. But the whole thing is to evaluate who you have to evaluate and get through it without any injuries and get ready for the next one.
Hey, Mike, I think the Lions are one of 4 or 5 teams, if my math was correct, that have the same head coach and the same coordinators for 3 or more years. How this training camp felt like a team that hit the ground running, and it kind of has gone like that all camp. What do you think the consistency has done for this group, these players on the field, this organization, and just being able to start from day one of camp and kind of get this thing moving?
Well, I think, if you really look back at it and go back from, this was year 3, year 2, year 1, and evaluate it from now and do it backwards, I think what you see is that they knew exactly what they had to do starting out, and it wasn't going to be pretty. And it was a total rebuild. I mean, it's even the quarterback, just every position. There wasn't any. They weren't picking up a team with any continuity at all, and they built it and rebuilt it. I think they've done a pretty good job. Now they've got some holes, but I think every NFL team has some holes. But that's what really strikes me is that with the consistency that you talked about, that's the way they've been able to build their roster because. To my mind, offense and defense, they have a consensus on what they ought to do at certain positions with certain players.
Mike, when I was playing, they told us never look ahead. Always focus on the game in front of you. It's one season. It's a one-game season, the whole season. But I don't play anymore, so I get to look ahead. I just want to talk about the first 10 games of the season. I'm looking at the schedule, and as I look at it, you're looking at obviously opening up against Kansas City Chiefs and then Seattle back-to-back. But outside of the Ravens, they really have a pretty easy kind of first 10 games of schedule. What do you think the Lions can accomplish in those first 10 games?
Well, that's good observations by you. I mean, I think it's manageable. I really do. I've heard mixed feelings about the people on, playing the first game against the Kansas City Chiefs. And my whole point in that is just play. Yeah. Play ball. Play your best ball. You might win, you might lose, it might be close, whatever. But just play and play. 60 minutes of clean football. And by that I mean, no false starts, no, that kind of stuff where you're constantly backing up and adding 5 yards. Next thing you know, it's 2nd and 25. But just play good, clean ball, play hard, and that'll, from this game through week 17, you should keep doing that, and the results will take care of themselves.
So in that opening game against Kansas City, what would be a loss that would scare you for the Detroit Lions in terms of how they played?
Well, I'll go back to a game against Washington in 1991 when I think it was 45-3.
Yeah.
45-0. 45-0. It was a shutout. 45-0.
Yeah, Ryan's
I'll give you a quick story there. Washington was kneeling on the ball with about 3 minutes to go, and Chris Spielman ran over to the coach and said, "Run the ball. Just please run the ball," because he thought they were being embarrassed by them taking a kneel with time left on the clock.
Mike, I do remember. I went back and did a look back at the '91 season. You're absolutely correct about that. Washington kneeled the ball at the 3-yard line, with plenty of time on the clock. It was wild, but there you go. That team turned it around. I think they won the next six games or 7 games, something like that.
Yeah, they ended up 6-2, lost a couple, and then ended up 12-4, and then beat Dallas in their first round of the playoffs, and then got beat again pretty soundly by Washington, which went on to the Super Bowl and won it.
Hey, Mo, how's the week been? Now that they're not going to be playing their starters in the preseason, did they hit harder this week? Did they kind of scrimmage against each other? What did you pick up from this past week of practice?
Yeah, Tommy, an interesting point from you. You know what? It took me a little while to catch on what they were doing yesterday, but what they actually did was play a game
Yep.
among themselves. And I think they were in the middle of the second quarter before it finally dawned on me what was going on. But they played a quarter, took a break, played a quarter, took a break. For halftime, I think they took the full whatever. I think it's 14 minutes, and then came back and played two more halves of football. And it was up tempo. It really was. Now it wasn't 100%, but it was up tempo. In fact, talking to one of the offensive players after the game, he said that the defense really sort of handed it to them. So
Ooh.
they were playing for keeps to a degree.
What do you think of the rookies so far, Mike, in the limited time that you've seen them? Jameer Gibbs, Jack Campbell, Brian Branch, the rest of the guys. Who's been impressive to you?
Well, first of all, when you said limited time, I thought you were going to hang up on me.
No, not at all, Mike. Unlimited for you.
Just to get even.
Yes.
I think it's a really good rookie crop. I don't know if they've got 5 All-Stars or Hall of Famers or whatever, but really good, solid players. And you know what? The best of the bunch. It might be the 5th player that you mentioned there, Brian Branch, the safety, cornerback, nickelback from Alabama that they drafted deep into the second round. Just a high-quality player and a higher quality person. Look, you'd want 90 of these, coming to camp every year. Just a really good ball player. And I think whatever he plays, whatever one of those spots he plays, and he did that at Alabama too, played that way. I think the Lions have a winner. They really do. I'm not saying the other guys aren't,
right?
But this is a guy for deep in the second round. He has really, from the first day he's been here, he's really shown out.
Hey Mo, I was watching the draft, obviously day 2, when they called him up to the stage, and he was actually in the building, and he changed his clothes from the night before from a suit into something a little more relaxing. But he wanted to be there for his draft day. I told Kathy, this guy, I'm in love with this guy already. It just showed you his heart. And, you only get to be drafted one time in your life. And, Will Levis, guys like that who got passed up in the first round, they went home. This kid stuck around and wanted to be there and get the hug in with Roger Goodell. I just thought that spoke volumes.
No, I agree with you, Tommy. And it's sort of like going across the stage to get your diploma when you graduate from college too.
Exactly.
It's a big deal. It really is. And you can see him, the way he plays, the way he carries himself. High character, high class young man.
Hey, I'm talking to Mike O'Hara, DetroitLions.com, longtime beat writer. Mike, we were talking to Lomas Brown a little bit yesterday, and one of the things he was talking about was, depth at defensive line, depth at linebacker, depth at defensive back. And, he didn't say, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but we kind of took that as, do you use one of those guys in areas of depth and try to get a playmaker, try to get a wide receiver, somebody to help build that unit? Do you see Brad Holmes as making a trade, whether before the season or somewhat of a shocker during the season?
Well, I don't know about the timing of it, but I don't disagree with you. I think they're light at wide receiver right now. Part of it's because of injuries. Part of it's because of the Jamison Williams suspension that's coming up. 6 games that they won't have him. But I think they need to pad that out a little bit, or maybe a lot. And however they do it, they do it. But now it's either getting somebody on waivers or making a trade. Maybe the Lions are, in their mind, might be overstocked at, let's just say, outside linebacker or defensive end or whatever, and figure that they can use one of those to get a wide receiver with another team that needs a defensive lineman.
Mike, last question. I'm not trying to put you on the hot seat. Just asking an honest question.
Oh boy, I can feel it.
Hot seat city.
You feel it?
Hot seat,
You
Mike.
feel it coming? No, everybody's so excited about what the Lions did last year in the 10 games. They're excited in the offseason. They're excited in the draft. They're excited about Dan Campbell, the culture, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. One question that hasn't been asked, Dan Campbell, have you seen everything you need to see out of him? What is the one thing that you want to see Dan Campbell improve on going into the 2023 year?
That's a good question. I mean, nothing really jumps out. I think one thing, he's got a lot of things going for him, and one of them is that he's genuine. So what you see out there with his players is what you're getting. It's not an act. It's not, and he looks, when he looks you in the eye and tells you how it is, that's the way it is. So from that standpoint, look, you've got to win. That's the bottom line. That's what they're out there for. And you can talk all you want about building character and all this other stuff, but But the bottom line is that what gives you longevity is winning games, winning division titles, winning ultimately a Super Bowl, or at least contending for it. So I think he's got a lot going for him, and I think the fact that we talked about the continuity they have in their staff. It's not every coach that they started out with 3 years ago is there, but it just doesn't work that way in the National Football League. Guys move along when they get opportunities, but they've done a good job of keeping their core staff together and keeping their core players together and expanding on it too.
Hey, Mo, you've been around for a couple of years. At least I remember you covered a few of these teams, and we can go back to the 90s when they had phenomenal teams, and you've mentioned it before, how many times they made the playoffs. I think they led the league or were tied with Dallas for most playoff appearances in the 90s. And then that 2010 to 2016 team, the 2014 team especially. And now you got this team. Is this the best Lions team you have seen start a season?
No, I think the 1990s, Tommy, there were more good proven players. Now, look, in another 3 or 4 years, I might look at this roster and look back and say, yeah, they're better. But, they had Herman Moore, who was an all-pro, a record setter. They had Barry Sanders. I mean, I maybe I told you this once before, but I think it was the 1995 team, or maybe 95 or 96. I forget which it was, but they had 14 players drafted by the Detroit Lions on that roster who made at least one Pro Bowl. And look, it's hard to get 3 Pro Bowlers on your team, but they have. I think it was 14. It might have been 13, right down to the kicker. So it's hard to match that. But I think on its own, with the way they started, the way this team started, with what they had when Brad Holmes and his staff and Dan Campbell and his staff took over, it's remarkable what they've done in really a short period of time.
Hey, speaking of the kicker, Mo, this is as weak a kicker game I've seen from the Lions in my entire life. I mean, am I wrong? I mean, you have Eddie Murray, you got Jason Hansen. And I forgot who's the guy we got after that.
I saw Eddie Murray last night.
Who was the long kicker that we always had?
Jim Arnold. Oh, you talking about Prater?
Yeah, Matt Prater.
Matt Prater. Jim Arnold was the punter.
Jim Arnold was Mayday.
I didn't know what you were talking about.
I mean, but this kicking game, this could cost you games.
Well, it could. Riley Patterson is really, really accurate. The issue with him is, does he have the big leg? He hasn't shown that yet. But just in my opinion, I think he's going to be the kicker, and I think he's going to be accurate. But can he get you the game winner from 45, 55 yards? That has to be proven.
So they're going to go a lot on 4th down from midfield, is what you're telling me.
Well, they don't exactly hate doing that.
I know.
Pretty good at it.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, Mike, we appreciate it, man. We love having you on. Thanks for doing this with us, buddy. Enjoy the season. Hope to talk to you throughout as well.
Thanks, Mo.
We're done. I'm done.
Oh man, dude! If you want to keep going, Mike, if you want to keep going, I will talk to you for the next hour.
Hey, Mike, let me ask you a quick question. I will ask you this:
overtime?
How did it make you?
I was kidding, by the way.
It's an encore, Mo. It's an encore.
You asked for it.
Hey, you asked for it. I was just gonna say, how did it make you feel to see Lomas, get in and see that video? Because Lomas, I've known him basically since 1988, and he's like big uncle for me, and it was a special moment for myself. How did it make you feel to see a guy like Lomas from those '90s teams get in the prime?
Listen, I'm not lying when I say this. I'm getting goose pimples right now thinking about it.
Mm-hmm. How do you know?
I remember when Lomas got signed by the Detroit Lions, just the first week or two of training camp, but he reported to the team on I think it was a Friday. It was at halftime of the game against the Buffalo Bills, the preseason game with the Buffalo Bills. He just came walking across the field, and he was Lomas Brown, with a shirt hanging in there, he's wearing a sport coat, shaking hands with people, big smile on his face. Just a tremendous guy, tremendous player. And I'll tell you, he is a whisker from being a Hall of Fame
Yes, he is.
offensive lineman.
Yeah.
Very, very close. I could see him, it'd be a push, but I could see him getting into the Pro Football Hall of Fame one of these decades.
I hope so. You saw what happened with Joe Klecko this past year. I think it'll be for Lomas. It'll be a situation. No, I'm just saying it'll be a situation
Joe
like Joe.
Klecko ahead of Joe Klecko ahead of Lomas.
No, I'm not. You missed what I said. Mo. I didn't say ahead of Lomas. I'm saying you see how he got in. It took a long time. I think Lomas will get in like that. Is what I was saying.
I agree with you. I really do.
The great Mike O'Hara, DetroitLions.com. Awesome content there. We invite everybody to check it out. Mike, thanks so much, buddy.
We were talking about Ask Easy about his prediction. He said 11-6. So on Instagram, they've been doing this for every single team. Today was the Lions, and the name of the place is the Game Day NFL. That's the follow on Instagram. They predict the Lions are going to go 11-6. Now we got it in front of us there, Bray. Now, can you see wins and losses?
I can see it.
All right, so
I got you.
What are they starting with Kansas City? They're calling it a loss.
I believe it's going to be a loss. I mean, look, and I understand that Eric Bieniemy is no longer there. They moved a couple players. Chris Jones may not play. Now, it also depends on if Chris Jones plays or not.
Right.
It's going to depend on if Chris Jones.
Let's just say he's not going to play because he hasn't practiced yet.
If he's not going to play, what the hell? I'm going Lions.
Okay.
I'm going Lions with the shocker. So I'm going Lions. I'm going Seahawks. But, see, I'm going to just reverse it. I think they go 1-1 in the first two games. So I'm going they're going to beat Kansas City, lose to Seattle.
Okay. Right now they got him at 1. They got him at 0-1, and then they got him winning 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They got him winning 6 in a row to go 6-1 on that Monday Night Football game the week before the bye.
Right.
And they got him losing to the Raiders. So I'm going to keep going here. After the bye week. Go ahead.
No, you know what? Stop there, and I'll just give you my quick synopsis. I don't understand why they would have them losing to the Raiders. That Raiders team, you're talking about a Lions team that's going to be playing at home.
Yep.
If you got
on Lomas Brown night.
It's Lomas Brown night. He's going into the Pride. 6 in a row. You're playing there. You don't even really know who's the quarterback going to be out there with the Raiders.
It'll be Jimmy G.
It'll be true, but you don't know what they're going to do. I can't understand how they got the Lions losing that one. Now, go ahead, bring it back.
Okay, so they're 6-2 right now.
Yep.
Considering that's it at the break.
That's not bad.
Then they come back at San Diego, at the L.A. Chargers. I mean, they got them losing. God bless you, Parker. They got them losing to the Chargers.
Does it all.
Then they got them winning 3 in a row against the Bears, Green Bay, and Saints.
All right, here we go.
They got them beating Green Bay, of course, on Thanksgiving Day, and then coming back the next week and beating the Saints in New Orleans. So now they got 3. They're 3-1 on the second half of the year. Then they got them losing at Chicago.
So
they got them beating the Broncos, and they got them losing at Minnesota, at Dallas. That's a Saturday night game.
Yeah.
And then they got them beating the Vikings to win their 11th game. They got them 11-6.
So with the second half of that, let me take one more quick look at it, Parker, if you will.
We got it.
Okay, I got it, Parker. All right, I can look at the people now. So I'm looking at the second half. I also have them losing that Chargers game. Look, it's going to be tough coming after a Monday night win. It'll be a lot of emotion in the dome. It'll be a lot of emotion. They got to go then on the road.
Comes off the bye week, too. You don't think they'll be ready for the Chargers off the bye week?
So I missed that. I apologize, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, after the Monday night game is a bye.
I see that. I'm just trying to quantify in my head.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm still going to call it a loss.
Okay.
I'm not.
Justin Herbert beats him.
I'm not doubling down because I don't want to be wrong. I believe in what Justin Herbert is going to be this year. I believe in Justin Herbert. I believe in Kellen Moore. I like what they're going to do out there. Quentin Johnson. I think this is the Austin Eckler.
Yeah, of course.
Listen, he can be mad all he wants to, but you know how you get paid in the NFL? It's to go out there and be productive. Like, it's to go out there and be productive. So I think he'll be productive.
He'll have a good year.
He'll have a good year too, man. Keenan Allen will stay happy. He'll stay healthy, and so I like the Chargers. Lost to the Chargers. They win. They beat them. Watch out for that Saints game
In New Orleans.
Watch out
against David Carr.
Watch out for that Saints game. I think the Lions come out sluggish. It'll be a tricky game. I think the Lions are going to win, but watch that one. They won't lose to Chicago. They'll beat Broncos. I think they lose the first Vikings game, and then they finish with 2 in a row.
Okay.
I think they beat Cowboys and Vikings to finish.
Those are 2 teams that they owe from last year. If you remember, they lost at Minnesota early in the year. That's when That's when Dan Campbell kind of messed up on the play clock
100%.
and let it go down. They didn't kick the field goal. They went for it on 4th down. And in Dallas, Jamal Williams fumbles on the goal line, and the rest is history. Lions had that game in the bag.
But if you pay attention to how I read that card out, I went 6-8 on the first side, and I think I went 5.
You got them finishing good.
Yeah, 5-2. So I think it's in there. Or I got them winning 4 losses, maybe 5. So that's almost 12.
Yep, I'll take it.
That's almost
Ryan numbers.
That's almost. So I'm the new Ryan Ermanni.
You
now.
are, at least for today. You are.
You know what? I'll be Ryan today. Love you, guy. We will see you soon. Hey, you know what you mentioned? You talked about Dan Campbell's clock management skills yesterday. Yesterday, I sat there. We talked to Mike O'Hare, and I
remember you asked that question.
And I asked about Dan Campbell. I said, "Is there anything you think that we need to be worried about? Is there anything that you're worried about with Dan Campbell going into year 3?" I think the only thing, man, is I think he's shored up a lot of things I think he's shored up a lot of things that he was not good at in the beginning. But I think the one thing I do care about is situational football. I want to know how can he be this year. That's the one area I want him to get good at, situational football, and that includes time management in situational football.
I believe it, too, and I think he is getting better.
Yeah.
So I'm not worried about Dan Campbell this year. He's the right man for the job, no question about it. Got to take a quick break here, but first I want to tell you about Guardian Alarm. You know the number to call, 1-800-STAY-OUT. Huh?
Woodward Bets.
Woodward Bets. Oh, yeah, Woodward Bets. I apologize for
That's
that.
all good.
My bad.
It's not our fault.
That's okay. We got it right here. Football season is fast approaching. Make it a money-making season. Need a lock of the week? Some best bets? How about a value play? Booner has got you covered. I call him my son. He looks like me when I was his age. Woodward Bets, weekends all season long, starting September the 2nd, Saturdays at 11 a.m., Sundays at 11:30 a.m. Booner and Friends, Woodward Bets on Woodward Sports YouTube channel. Sorry about that, guys. Oh.
Yeah, so keep talking about what we were talking about in terms of the Lions schedule. I said it ends going to be a good one for them, maybe to the tune of maybe 12 wins. You know, maybe it's not 11-6. Maybe they actually do sneak another win and go 12-6. But the one thing that they're going to do, they're going to be favored. I think that's what we haven't talked about. They're going to be favored in a lot of games this year, man. The Detroit Lions are never favored.
That's a first.
To win games. How many games do you – that's a good question. How many games do you think the Lions will be favored in this year?
That's a good one. Out of 17 games?
Yeah, that's a good one.
What do we got at home? 6. Let's see. You got 6 games in conference, in division.
Oh, you're taking it there.
I'm going there.
He's going with the real
I'm going to say they're going to be favored 5 times in the division.
Okay. Oh.
All right?
Oh.
5 times in the division. So that's 5 right there.
Whoa.
They're an underdog to Kansas City, obviously.
Okay.
Seattle, I think they'll be favored over Seattle by a point to 3 points.
They'll probably be underdogs at Chargers. And
Yes,
they'll probably be
because they're on the road.
at Ravens.
Ravens probably because it's on the road.
Yeah.
I think they'll be favored over the Raiders on Monday Night Football.
I think
they'll be
so.
favored over the Bucks. Carolina.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
Now Carolina, they'll be favored over Carolina, although Carolina
as they
killed
should
them
be.
last year.
But Carolina is starting a first-year quarterback. They got rid of DJ Moore, who's now with the Chicago. That's an interesting one. Do you think they will be favored? You said they're only 5 times. You said 5 times in the division?
Yeah, 5 out of 6.
So do you think they'll be favored? Chicago last game in Chicago and Minnesota last game in Minnesota? Those are tricky games, man.
Well, the last game is, oh, man.
Yeah.
That's tough. It depends on how Minnesota's doing. They'll definitely be favored over Chicago.
Right.
But it depends on how Minnesota's doing. It's a 13-win team from last year, but they lost 7 great players from that squad. So who knows what they're trying to do. They're going to be favored over the Falcons.
100, as it should be.
Let's see, what else?
Arthur Smith is a good coach, though.
Yep, the Buccaneers favored over them.
They're horrible. Like did I tell you when I saw Mike Evans at
No.
at training
Did
camp?
you tell him to come on by?
So I talked to him about doing the show. I didn't have time to do that, man. But he was coming off, and this is right after I think Kyle Trask was in there with the ones on this particular drive.
Tampa Bay beat them, by the way.
And yeah,
13-6 in that game.
They did. They didn't beat him in practice, though.
No.
They didn't beat him in practice where it really mattered. So Mike Evans is walking towards me, and I've never met Mike Evans before. You know, he was drafted after I retired. You know, you're always like, I don't know if he knows me or not. So he's walking towards me, and I walk towards him. I said, what's up, Mike? How you doing, man? Brad, no. He said, come on, man. I know you are. I'm a number 1 legend, man. But this is just that receiver talk.
Of course.
Without even talking. I was like, man. He was like, bro, man, you see what it is. I was like, dang, like that. He was like, look, all right, you know what it is. You know what time it is. Like, I didn't even say anything just now, did I? But we know exactly what he's saying. Basically, quarterback situation is not it. Offensive coordinator situation there is not it.
He's going from Tom Brady to Baker and Kyle Trask.
And he's gonna let you know. I'm telling you, he won't be there next year at all. But he was
Okay, let me ask you this then.
Go ahead.
If the Buccaneers are kind of dumping like you thought they were,
Yeah,
when they start Baker, you said they are kind of doing it on purpose.
They are.
Secretly.
Yeah. But
Why not ask to see what it would cost to get Mike Evans?
The Lions?
Yeah.
And you wouldn't have to pay him a ton because you're talking about a receiver that is entering.
I'm talking about what do you got to give Tampa to get him? That's the thing. Wouldn't you like a guy? How about that guy on this team?
Hell yeah.
How about it?
Hey, you talking about a guy that still is a really good route runner, even though he's a taller guy. He's not a faster guy, but great possession receiver that runs really good routes. And he still gets by people. He's not a possession receiver in the sense of
he's still one of the best receivers, right?
100%.
Top 12?
100%. He's still in that top 15 range. I think he's in the top 12, but some people may argue. But 100%. But what would the ticket on that be? I would take a flyer if Tampa was offering. I would say even Godwin. Even the other receiver.
Well, Godwin is hurt. He's probably not going to play for a while again. He really has been banged up. Yeah.
Mike Evans, I would definitely do something with Mike Evans. I know a lot of people in the chat out there go like, oh, not Mike Evans. We're perfect the way we are. Look, that wide receiver position, that wide receiver room right now needs another guy.
We open up with breaking news from Adam Schefter, and it was something, guys, we were literally just talking about. The Lions are moving Emmanuel Moseley off of the PUP list that's physically unable to perform. He will now open the season on the active roster, eligible to play on opening day. Matt Broder in with us, our WSN Lions beat writer. Braylon Edwards, Tom Mazaway, JB Parker, the whole gang is here. Guys, this is huge news, and I think when the Lions moved off of Chase Lucas yesterday, we had a really nice preseason. He's put together a really nice camp. You felt like this was maybe something that was moving towards Moseley coming off of PUP and onto the active roster. Braylon Edwards, this is great news for this football team.
Yeah, this is great news. You're talking about a guy that when he was healthy, he's averaging around 9 to 11 pass deflections a year. He's averaged a pick every season, but he's always where the ball is. He makes plays. He's a guy that is disruptive as there is as a DB, and he's a great tackler. One thing the Lions did last year very well. The Lions were a good tackling team. They're a very good tackling ball club, and he helps. And at Broder, we were talking about how long is it going to take a guy like that to get situated, to get in there. One deciding factor we always forget about, Cam Sutton is his college teammate. Cam's his college teammate. They play in that rhythm. You know, what do you think is going to be, what does Emmanuel Moseley add to that defense that looks like it's getting better and better in the secondary?
You could argue before Emmanuel Moseley got hurt, he was trending to become one of those top 15, maybe even top 10 cornerbacks in the entire league. He was a star. He was becoming a star on that San Francisco 49ers loaded defense. So I think pairing him across the field with Cam Sutton,
his boy,
it's an incredible tag team that the Lions can roll out there. And we talked a few minutes ago about Cam Sutton as being that lockdown corner, that cornerback that the Lions haven't had in years. Emmanuel Moseley has the potential to be better than Cam Sutton. So to have those two together, and like you said, Emmanuel Moseley is a great tackler, and that's what Aaron Glenn wants to do. Yeah. He wants to blitz, he wants to get to the quarterback, and he wants to leave his cornerbacks out on islands. And to do that, they need to be able to tackle.
Bray, you played this game a long time, and it's funny because if you watch Undisputed yesterday, Keyshawn Johnson.
How could you understand anything?
right.
Jeez
but
Louise.
Keyshawn Johnson and Michael Irvin were going back and forth with Richard Sherman on if it's more difficult to play wide receiver or defensive back in the league. However you feel about that, I guess it's a roundabout question. What I'm about to ask you is, how quickly can a guy like Emmanuel Moseley, who hasn't had any training camp, who's with a new team, by the way, this isn't, somebody he's been with for a couple of years now, he could just maybe pick up and where he left off. He's with a new team, he's with new teammates, he's in a new system. How quickly can a guy like this acclimate to the speed of the game and to the Detroit Lions defense, the way in which they play it?
If he trusts himself, the speed of the game would be fine. He knows his game. This will be year 4 for him that he's entering in, I believe, or year 5 that he's entering. So he'll be fine speed-wise if he trusts his knee, 100%. The big thing, he's a DB. He's going to be out there on the island. If they're playing man-to-man coverage, he knows how to play man-to-man coverage. He knows how to play zone. He knows how to play quarters. He knows how to play cover 2, let the man release outside, make sure he press. So it's easier for a DB to get acclimated to a system then a wide receiver. And then you got your boy Cam Sutton on the team. He's going to give him some old school adage, the verbiage that they use at Tennessee to make him even easier to get it. But as it relates to what position is harder, it's DB. Like, as much as I don't want to say that, it's the defensive back position, because when you got guys like Devontae Adams, Justin Jefferson running at you full speed forward, you got to be running as fast as them and thinking as fast as them as you're running backwards and opening up. So you do get help sometimes if you have a great defensive rush like Emmanuel Mosley had in San Francisco, like he will have here in Detroit. You get help, but we're more athletic than them. We're more athletic than them, but yeah, to do what they do backwards as we do it forwards, it's tough.
Braylon, is it safe to assume that if they're not going to put him on the PUP list where he'd have to miss the first 4 games, they probably expect him to be 100% healthy by week 3 against Atlanta? Is that safe? Maybe week 4 by the Packers?
If they're putting him on the non-PUP list, they expect him to start by week 2.
Okay.
If they expect him to start by week 2. When I tore my ACL, I came off ACL. Now, granted, I was the first round draft pick for the Browns at the time. Tore my ACL, came back, worked through summer. They bought some other receivers in. Joe Jurevicius came in, Tim Carter. So they brought some guys in. But once they activated me, that last preseason game, I was no longer on the PUP list. People knew I was starting. So I say, if he's not going to be on that list and you were weak at that position last year, they're looking for him to start by game 2.
What did they tell you, Braylon? I'm sorry, Ryan.
Hold on, Maz. Hold on. Let me read this. Want to spend your weekends with us? Now you can. Woodward Sports Live Game Watch Party, the latest show to hit WSN's YouTube channel. It premieres September 2nd, 12 o'clock to watch Michigan and East Carolina. Then, of course, September 7th, watch the Lions and Chiefs kick off the NFL season. Join us game days. Woodward Sports Live Game Watch Party, only on WSN's YouTube channel. Sorry, Maz.
I'm sorry, buddy. What did they tell a player that's coming on, that's on the PUP list?
Right.
They come to you and they say, hey, congratulations, you're back on the team?
That's funny. It does seem like you're not a part of the team when you're on PUP. No, they watch you. They assess you. They see how you're doing. They see how you trust your injury. They see how you're acting in your injury. They see how how your wind is.
Right.
A lot of it is just getting in shape. A lot of times guys are healthy enough, but they don't trust their injury or they're out of shape. So they just come up to you and they ask you after they've watched or assessed for enough. Say, hey man, you look like you can go. You look like you're ready to take the training wheels off. Are you ready? And it's up to you to say yeah. And nobody's gonna say no. But
that's what I was gonna say to you. What if you weren't comfortable yet?
So that happened to me, and that did happen to me, and I won't put the situation out there, but I think it's one of those situations where
I know when it happened to you.
I know you know.
Yeah.
But I'm saying it depends on where you are in your career. Because if you're in a space where you're very comfortable in your career, you still have some of the power in your play and like that, they come up to you and they say, hey, man, you're looking good. And they usually do that around a big game coming up or a big week coming up or a big stretch. They say, hey, you're looking good. If you're comfortable, you can say, like Kawhi Leonard, no, I'm not. No, I'm not. You can't tell me when my knee.
Like Ben Simmons, you mean?
You can't tell me when my knee should respond. You can't tell me when my Achilles should respond. You can't tell me insert injury here. But if you're in a place where, you don't know what's going to happen next year. You don't know when you're going to get your next chance to start. You don't know when somebody wants to rely on you. And they come to you and say, hey, man, you're looking good. You know what you're going to say, man. Yeah, you're right. I am. I'm ready to go.
But Mosley's not in that situation.
He is not. He is in a really good situation. He's in a situation where he has leverage. He's in a situation where he can say, no, I'm good. Let Jerry relax. So the fact that he's off PUP, that means he's ready to go.
Good.
Yeah.
Doesn't this feel like a win for Brad Holmes?
Oh, God,
Too. I mean, when you take a shot on a guy that's injured, that isn't playing, when you swing on a guy like that in free agency, for him to not miss any games, at least be on the active roster, whether he plays week 1 or not, at least they expect him to be back for week 2. I do anticipate that he plays week 1.
Yeah,
I don't know if they make this move if he doesn't, but it just feels like another win for Brad Holmes.
It's a major win because you got guys, and rightfully so. So this isn't me coming at you, Maz. You got individuals, fans like Maz, who the only thing they would say negative about Brad Holmes is what? He's drafted and he's brought in injured players. And they didn't like the Jameson Williams pick to move up. You see what it's gotten out of right now? Nothing. You didn't like the Hendon Hooker pick to a certain extent until you realize, oh, shoot, we got a first-round quarterback in the 3rd round. And even with Emmanuel Mosley,
We were terrible at DB last year. Why are we bringing in an injured guy? That's the thought process. To have this guy come off his injury and he's ready for game one, that does a tremendous service to Brad Holmes, and it puts fans like Maz back in the chair. Like, all right, maybe he does know what he's doing.
Right.
So
Lions fans.
Thank you,
Lions fans, 100%. So it's a good move for Brad Holmes that Emmanuel Mosley will be able to go week one.
Maz, this is long-time Lions fan. This, again, what do we talk about? Lions luck.
Yep, it's
Seems
changed,
change.
bro.
It seems to change.
It's
and
amazing.
This is just another part of that, right?
Absolutely, man. It used to be you would have a guy, and we've talked about it all the time. Guy goes down like C.J. Gardner-Johnson. Oh, that's it for him. He's out for the year. Or Nate Sudfeld. Oh, damn, we don't have another backup. What are we going to do now? And so on and so forth. Now Emmanuel Mosley, we didn't see anything out of him this whole training camp. Boom, he's coming off the pup and he's ready to play probably week one.
Guys, let's bring him in. He is the voice of the Detroit Lions and, of course, Fox 2 Sports Director Dan Miller joining us ahead of the Lions and Chiefs 8 days from today. Dan Miller, first of all, this is a totally lame question, but 8 days from today, aren't you just ready to go? How great is this?
Yeah, it's exciting. I mean, you think about being there and they're going to raise their banner and you're playing the team that won the Super Bowl and all the pomp and circumstance. Every eye in the National Football League will be on you. I mean, it's an honor to play in that game. You'd like to be the home team in that game because that means you did something pretty special the year before. But no, I can't wait. You got to get to that because there's so much going on now with the roster churn and practice squad and everything that's going to happen. But, here in about 24 to 36 hours, it's going to be all Kansas City, and they're going to be into a somewhat normal week as they get ready for a Thursday night game. So, yeah, I mean, we've been talking about it for a long time. It's almost here, and I can't wait.
Hey, Dan, I was after yesterday, after 4 o'clock, we got off the air, and you hear a couple of little things coming across. They're going to release this guy. They're going to probably keep this guy. Then I'm waiting. Then I see the Steelers. They put out a whole thing. Here's our team. Here's the Rams. Here's the Eagles. I'm still waiting. Then at 6 o'clock,
You're very
I'm still
impatient.
freaking waiting. And now, they get down into the 53. And now today, I am still waiting. There's 3 guys on the practice squad, maybe 4. Where's my team? What is this, Mission Impossible?
I just read Justin Rogers just tweeted something reminding everybody how this has worked in the past, that teams have until 4 o'clock for guys to clear waivers, and then they get their waiver guys assigned to them. Then you can put your guys on injured reserve, and then he said last year around 6 o'clock the practice squad came out. So listen, if you are that hungry for the practice squad, you might have to wait about 2 hours and 55 minutes, but I think it's on the way.
Thanks, Dan.
Dan, you see the circumstances. You see the circumstances I have to work with, Dan. You see what I have to deal with. You see what I'm dealing with.
Brad Holmes, I'm sure, could answer that much better than I could. Look, I was looking for those lists yesterday too, but sometimes it just takes a while for it to come out.
Hey, Dan, you mentioned something. You talk about the Kansas City Chiefs last year or this past season. They did win the Super Bowl, and they will be hanging those banners. But guess what? There was a team that finished pretty strong in the Detroit Lions that was gifted the chance to play against Kansas City. How good do you feel our chances are? And I say are. What happened to that? Now I'm all of a sudden a Lions fan. How good are our chances against Kansas City, especially with a Chris Jones who doesn't look like he's going to be there for game one?
Well, yeah, that certainly doesn't hurt. He's a dominant football player, one of the best interior linemen in the entire league. So if he's not there, okay, that's cool. But no, look, I think this is a good team. The Lions are a good team. You have to go out there and play it. Kansas City is used to these big moments, bright lights, playing at home. They have the advantages in those regards. But I'm just, Braylon, I want to see what this defense looks like. And you're going to get no better test than to play against, the guy who's been one of the best, if not the best quarterback in the league for the past, 5 or 6 years. So right off the bat, you go against Mahomes. You'll learn something about a new secondary, which I can't sit here and tell you how good it's going to be. I think that defensive line is going to look markedly different than it did last year. I can't tell you how good it's going to be. I think it should be better against the run. I can't tell you for certainty that it will, though. So, and your chances are you're going to have a much different look at linebacker if Jack Campbell's in there taking a bunch of snaps. So it's hard to say Here's what's going to happen. Here's what they're going to be. I think I know. I think this defense should be a top half of the league defense, but they have to go out there and prove it, because for the past, couple years under this regime, years under the Patricia regime, they were anything but that. So I got to see it.
Definitely everything but that. Dan, talk about a move like in terms of Emmanuel Mosley. Emmanuel Mosley now off PUP. He's activated. Talk about what that means for Brad Holmes and the Detroit Lions, because you're talking about a team that finished 32nd against the pass last year, and now you got a guy that's coming off ACL and you activate him. That's got to be a good sign for the Detroit Lions.
Well, I think it is, and I think what it says is they didn't want him to miss the first 4 games. I don't think it says that he's going to be there for Kansas City, and at this point I'd kind of imagine that he won't be, just because we haven't seen him out there practice at all. So, but I think what they wanted to do was get him on the roster, make sure that he's available if he's good to go in week 2 against Seattle, or week 3 or week 4, whatever it is. I think that was their idea behind activating him. And look, with Emmanuel Mosley, they're better. Without him, they're better, because when you bring in C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Brian Branch has been probably the find of training camp, and the guy that has been the biggest surprise and biggest star. Not that people didn't think he was good, but to come on this quickly is pretty incredible. To get Tracy Walker back, I think Jerry Jacobs looks like he's taking a nice step and looks like he's healthy again and ready to roll out there at that other starting cornerback, Cam Sutton. And Kirby Joseph is a year older, a year wiser, and coming off a terrific rookie season. So with Mosley, like I said, they're better than maybe they are today, but I think today they're better than they were last year, and that's going to be interesting to watch.
And part of that too, Dan, you mentioned Brian Branch, is obviously these rookies, whether when the depth chart comes out or not, whether they're first string, second string, they're going to get significant time. Broderick Martin, Sam Laporta, Jahmyr Gibbs, Jack Campbell, Brian Branch. That's 5 guys that look like they're ready to play day one.
Yeah, and I think they will. I think Martin is the guy that we'll see how much he plays. I think that there's some competition on that defensive line. But I think Branch has forced his way onto the field. I do think that things indicate he's going to start right now at the nickelback position, and that you're going to get at your nickel corner position, and that they're going to move CJ back to safety. And that's just a testament to how he's played. They haven't been able to keep him off the field. He's been too good. And you're going to get a heck of a test in week 1 against Mahomes, because believe me, Patrick Mahomes, as good as Brian Branch might be, is going to test him. He knows that he's not played in the National Football League before, so he'll test him in this game. But look, I think the other part of that equation, Ryan and Braylon, is this defensive line and playing the way that it played the second half of last year, and now having a healthy Romeo Okwara, a healthy James Pascal, a healthy guys that weren't there at 100% last year. James Houston for an entire season.
Julian
Aiden
Okwara,
Hutchinson,
all
another
those
year.
guys, yeah.
Yeah, all these guys that have been there. And I have said before, I'll say it again, the guy I'm probably most intrigued by is Josh Pascal. Mm-hmm. Because this is a second-round pick who was a guy who made plays and could dominate at times at Kentucky. And they really were excited about him coming into his rookie season. He was never healthy last year, but he's healthy now. And I think he's got a chance to be a force for this team on the inside and on the outside, a versatile piece that you can use either place. I think he's kind of the guy that I'm keeping an eye on that could be a real difference maker on that defensive line.
And when you add a guy like a Josh Pascal, it feels like, an added first-round pick, essentially, when you're just bringing him on the roster. How much better does he make everybody next to him? How much better does a Josh Pascal make, an Isaiah Buggs or an Aiden Hutchinson? That's how this team gets going, right?
Yeah, no doubt. And seeing Levi Onwuzurike out there. And, finally he's healthy and able to play. And another second-round draft pick that they had high hopes for when they drafted him. I don't know what they're going to get out of him, but just seeing him out there with a chance to play and take snaps, and for us to be able to find out how good he is, I think is intriguing for this defensive line. So I think there's a lot of pieces kind of floating around out there with this defensive line. We just talked about guys coming back off of injury, Charles Harris and Okwara as well. So how does it all fit together? And then how do they all play together, I think is a huge question for this team, because everything they do up front makes everybody else better. And I think the possibilities are there that they can be pretty good.
Hey, Dan, as much love as the Lions are getting, probably only second to the Jets as far as national love goes, They are still sitting in Las Vegas at 9.5 wins. That number has not moved since the beginning of the year. And the spread against the Chiefs hasn't moved. It's still 6.5, even though Chris Jones is out. Does that tell you anything about what we're looking forward to on this team? Are we too much thinking they're going to win 14 games?
I think what it tells you is, you guys know how this works. It moves based on where people bet. And I think what it tells you is there's a lot of people out there that might believe in the Lions, but there's a lot of people who know the Lions' history and they're saying, you got to show me, and they're betting the under. And as long as you have that being somewhat equal, then you know what? The casinos are going to live off the VIG and they're going to be fine. Yep. So I think what it tells you is, as much as there's people that are bullish on this team, there are people that are not buying in yet and saying, you got to show me, and I'll put my money on history saying the Detroit Lions aren't going to win. And you know what? That's on the Lions to change. I've talked about that a million times. You want to change that conversation? Win games. It's just that simple. You want people to forget about what's happened in the past? Win games. Now, the truth is, this team doesn't have anything to do with 2008. This team doesn't have anything to do with any of the disappointments that have had in the past. This team will carve out its own place in history, good, bad, or indifferent, whatever it ends up being. But you do carry that stigma of the teams that have come before you. And that's what it says to me about why a line like that is where it is, or why it hasn't moved. That line will move based on how people bet, period.
Hey, Dan, I have a question about the offense. You know, I was a guy I'm looking at. I know that Jared Goff had a really good season last year, especially in that last 10-game stretch. You look at the numbers that they put up. You look at the touchdowns that he put up. You know, and watching going into this year, I'm like, I just yeah, and this is initial, by the way. I just don't see them being able to repeat that. I don't know if he can do those numbers again. Where's the other receiver? Where's the other guy? But, Dan, am I wrong? Because now I'm analyzing. I'm saying last year, Amon-Ra St. Brown missed some games. He was injured at times. DJ Chark wasn't there the whole season. They had to find wide receivers to fill the role. DeAndre Swift, is he going to play this week? Is he going to be limited this week? As I'm looking, they were able to do all that last year with rotating wide receivers, with Jamal Williams coming in. Sometimes it's Craig Reynolds. Sometimes it's Josh Jackson. And to be that efficient with that much going on, I actually believe now that they could be better on offense this year. I'm starting to buy in. Am I wrong?
Well, the stability, Braylon, starts up front. The stability starts with that offensive line. That's the face of this team. That's who this team is built around.
Yeah.
Is that offensive line. They're healthier now than they were at any point last year. So the hope is that they can be better up front than they were a year ago. And they were pretty good. It's the best running game we've seen here since Barry was here. Yeah. So, no, I don't think it's crazy to think that they could be better, but I think they just have to go out and carve out an identity for this team. And I think the identity hopefully is the same. They're a team that can run the ball and control the ball on the ground. They're a team that can protect their quarterback, and they're a team that takes care of the football. If you do those things, you're going to be effective, because I think the big plays will come. I think the big plays with Amon-Ra will come. The big plays with Gibbs will come. Laporta's going to be a player. Khalif Raymond had a terrific season last year. I think, Marvin being back, I think he'll play a role as a veteran on this team. I think they have different options. I agree with you. I do kind of look at that receiving core, and I feel like, man, there's just like one piece that's missing. There's one piece that you wish they kind of had. But look, you know this as well as anybody. Teams aren't perfect. You find a way to work with what you got, and their way to work with that might be Gibbs is more involved in the slot, working outside. Laporta takes on a larger role than we had in the tight ends last year. Good in the red zone, maybe not huge overall, but a guy that might be a high-volume pass catcher, and I think that would make a difference for this team.
Yeah, one of the small things I'll just follow up with, I'm intrigued and I'm happy about Marvin Jones Sr. I think one thing we said, he's consistent. Marvin Jones Sr. is going to show up. He's going to play you 16 to 17 games. He's going to give you 880 yards. Last year, DJ Chark was inconsistent. So that's the one thing I do like this year. I like Marvin Jones. You can count on him, I think.
Hey, Dan, you talk about
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, just let me say this. The one thing about Marvin that was so apparent in training camp that he has been great at since the day he walked in the door here, and I assume he probably was in Cincinnati too. You throw a 50-50 ball up there, he's going to find it. Yeah. I mean, he is just so good when it comes to contested catches. And if there's anything training camp showed me, that at the age of 33, and I think I saw, again, I think I'll reference Justin here. I think I saw yesterday outside of the special teams guy with New England, whose name escapes me.
Number 15,
he's the oldest
wide
receiver.
receiver.
Yeah. He's the oldest wide receiver to make a roster this year.
Wow.
So but I mean, he looks great. I mean, Marvin and I have talked many times. His weight has remained the same for like the last 12 years. It hasn't changed a pound.
That's true.
Just
so
like me.
I think he's ready to go and do. Yeah, just
Matthew,
like you, but
Matthew
different.
Slater.
I think
Slater.
he's ready to. I think he's ready to do whatever's asked
Yeah.
of him. I don't think he'll be in the same role, obviously, that he was the first 5 years he was here, but he'll have a role.
Hey, Dan, final thing from me. You mentioned just protecting the football, and it just seems so simple. The more things change, the more things stay the same. Jared Goff in the first 7 games last year, 6 interceptions. Jared Goff in the last 10 games last year, 1 interception, 8 wins. You know, I mean, it just seems so simple. Protect the football, win the turnover battle, and win games. Is it that simple?
Well, it's the biggest indicator of winning and losing in the NFL is a turnover battle. I mean, you win that battle, statistics say your chances of winning go up. You win it by 1, it goes up. You win it by 2, it goes up significantly. If you win it by 3, it's overwhelming that your chances of winning are there. And you know what? Here's the key to that, though. And I asked Mark Brunell about that during the offseason. He did it without getting too conservative. In other words, yes, he dialed down the interceptions, but he didn't dial down the production. And you can tell a quarterback don't do it anymore, and they're going to kind of just take the easy throw every time. He was still taking chances. He was just taking the right chances. And I think that's huge for this team. The difference between 1-6 and 8-2 guys was about not turning the ball over, taking the ball away on defense, and then the fact that they stopped committing a lot of the turnovers that were just making life easy for the opponents. So, I mean, some things in this game are complicated, some aren't. And there's some mistakes that you can make to beat yourself that just you can't live with in the NFL. Turnovers and penalties are right there.
In those last 10 games, 18 touchdowns, 1 interception. Just an incredible run, incredible quarterback play. Dan Miller, enjoy the week of preparation. I know it's kind of a crazy week for you with a Thursday game and a road opener, so enjoy it. And thanks so much for chatting with us here. We'll talk to you again maybe in a couple of weeks here.
Thanks, Dan.
You got it. Appreciate you guys.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate it. Dan Miller, everybody.